Shoply team. How are you all? It's a pleasure to be here with you all for this strategy session. I'm just bringing the rest of the team on. I'll give you all a few minutes. Drop us a comment in the question and answer and let me know where you're tuning in from today. It's good to see you all. I missed everyone last week being out and about. A big thanks to the team for taking control of it all. Okay, I see Dave, George, Janet. Hi, guys. Welcome. Tito, Tess, Scott. I see Mike. It's great to have you all on. Okay. Oh, we got some new names here I don't recognize, which is always good to see. So I'll give everyone a few minutes. Now, we've got some exciting announcements today, and I know you guys have all been absolutely wanting an update. We've got the whole team on joining us today. So we've got Lyndon. Hey, Lyndon.
Hey, Rachel, great to be here.
We got Jorge. Give us a wave, Jorge.
Hi, Rachel. Welcome back.
And we've got Craig. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Rach.
Excellent. All right. I think we have everyone on. We'll get started. So I know we've had some updates for you the last couple of weeks, and I know there's still a question around the timing, and I really wanted to acknowledge that today. So the exciting thing is that we are so close, and we will have a date for you very, very soon. The final stages are being worked on with, the structure is complete. We've touched on this over the last coming weeks. The programming is progressing well. Jorge has been, deep in the bat cave doing all of this work in the background, and everything is moving in the right direction. The big focuses that Jorge's been working on now is, the updated branding, brand partner back office, the updated community partner back office, the guest back office, the merchant back office, all new updates for the funnels. We've been redoing all the videos as well. So there is a lot going on behind the scenes. But what's really important is what happens in these final stages determines how stable this is once it all goes live. And that is absolutely where our focus is right now, and where our focus will be, over the next week or two, up until we kick this off, because obviously what we don't want is any instability or any issues when we switch all of this on. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. I can sit here and tell you that, hey, there probably will be an issue, because there is no such thing as perfection, and I'm all about being honest. So, I think those things will happen, but we will all be there on standby to absolutely make sure that is fixed. So just a big shout out to Jorge for all of that work he's been doing in the background. It's been incredibly involved, but we are incredibly excited, to be able to bring this to you very, very, very soon. So rather than focusing on a date today, I want to focus on something more important, and that is the infrastructure. So infrastructure is what determines whether a business grows or whether a business breaks. So it's not visible. It's not the visible part of the business. And that's what a lot of people, sitting out there now going, what are you doing? That infrastructure is really important. It's not the visible part of the business. It's the part that holds everything together behind the scenes. And what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks is, really strengthening that infrastructure across everything. So it started last year with the technology. The platform was improved, the integration with Shopify. We've then moved into strengthening the pricing structure, the compensation plan. There was all the leadership brought on. And what we want to do moving forward is, strengthening that leadership to the next point. So one of the most important pieces of the infrastructure we know is the people behind it. So today I'm really excited to share, and this is our big announcement for today. We try to every week come to you with a big announcement. Today I'm really excited to share that we are bringing on a director of international. Now, what this role is specifically focused on is supporting and driving our expansion across global markets. So, you will have heard us talk about over the last coming weeks, 175 countries, millions of Shopify stores. Because if we are serious about being a global business, and we absolutely are, then we need leadership that is dedicated to that. There is only so much that all of us on this call can do. And whilst global sounds really, really exciting, it is also incredibly complex. And for any of you on the call that have dealt in international markets, done business in international markets, there is a lot of complexity to it. Every market is different. There's different cultures, different buying behaviors across different markets, different ways of communicating, and different expectations from the business and from the opportunity. So, what may work in the US may not work in Vietnam. What may work in Australia may not work in Greater China. So, it doesn't always translate across to each market. And this is where experience and understanding from somebody in charge of those markets becomes absolutely critical. So, this is not about hurrying and expanding into more countries. This is about supporting you properly as you do that. Because as you start having conversations internationally, you need clarity, you need guidance, and you need the confidence in what you're building. So having dedicated leadership that is focused on international markets means better support for all your conversations, better alignment in all of your messaging, and better execution. That's one word that we've touched on a lot over the last coming weeks, better execution across all of these different regions. So you're not sitting there trying to figure this out alone. So we have searched far and wide for the right person. It's taken us a little bit longer than we expected. It was really important that we have someone with the knowledge, with the personality, and that really, understands the complexity of international growth and expansion. So the gentleman that we have found has over 20 years experience in the e-commerce space. He's worked across several billion-dollar brands spearheading their international expansion. His experience spans across Greater China, Asia, Europe, Middle East, Africa. He's a hands-on operator. He loves to get down in the trenches, get dirty, and build out these markets. But more importantly, what I love about him is that he leads with his heart and he deeply cares about people. And that is what we really, really need right now. So I'm going to bring him on today's call. Welcome to the team, Jared Thwaites. Now let's just get Jared on. Give me a sec. I'm sure I saw his name here somewhere. Here we are. Okay. Jared, we've promoted you to panelist. And we have Jared.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome to the team.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here. Can you not see my camera yet?
We
No.
can't see your camera. Do you want to turn it on so everyone can see you? Now
I
just
would
a
love
heads
to
up,
do that.
guys. It is 2 a.m. for Jared in the morning, so excuse the messy hairdo.
I wish I had hair to worry about. Tell
All
me, I
right.
just don't know where to find when I find the camera. There, hold on. All right, I'm struggling here a little bit. You guys carry
All
on.
right.
Sorry
Are you
about
on your
that.
phone or are you on your laptop?
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Okay,
I'm
so
having some internet
it
issues
should be
here.
down in your bottom left. He's usually much better at tech than this, guys. Trust me.
I wish.
All right, I can't turn the camera on for you. Why we give Jared a couple of minutes? We've over since the beginning, I think we're 9 or 10 weeks into this now. The international markets and international expansion has been a big focus for us. All of us on the executive team has worked, internationally into other markets, at length. And, we understand the importance of making sure that that support is there for each and every one of you when you're out there having these discussions. So it's been a real priority for us, and we'll touch a little bit more after we talk to Jared in relation to we've also put together an international pricing structure because we are very aware that the pricing structure is sensitive in a lot of those markets. So, we'll touch on that after Jared. But, I think one of the biggest things we've seen in the beginning was when you're working across, so many different countries, a pricing structure that works, in America or in Australia, doesn't necessarily translate into a market, like Vietnam or Bangladesh or any of those Asian countries. So, we've obviously sat down and we analyzed that, we evaluated that, and, with our experience across international markets, we've set up an international model that will obviously be at a different pricing structure for a lot of those markets. So, obviously making sure that you are supported and are given the best opportunity when, building your business or, bringing on merchants across all of those countries. I know a lot of you have, contacts throughout Asia and into Greater China and into Europe. So, it's incredibly important to firstly have that support, but also have the support of someone who has done it for years, isn't stepping into a role that, is just there to have those conversations, actually understands the nuances across all of those different regions. So let me try and get Jared back on here. All right, give me a moment, guys. Apologies. I've now got two Jareds on the call, which is a little bit scary. All right, Jared, are you there? No. Okay, we'll give Jared another couple of minutes. What I'm going to do here is I'll throw to Lyndon shortly because I'm going to have Lyndon question Jared and, run through some of that. Lyndon's been, a crucial part of our international discussions and a crucial part of our international strategy. Lyndon, I know you've worked across, I think it's 30 or so different countries over the, your 30 to 40 years in the industry. So I'll get you to talk to Jared when we can actually get him on. But Craig, I may throw to you if you're there because I know you and I have worked together before too, and you've worked across a lot of these markets, and I know you have a lot of contacts, internationally as well that you've been, having discussions with. So, tell how, I know we've talked about this, but I want everyone else to hear it from you too. How important do you think it is having someone, step into this role, and really be there to spearhead and be in the trenches with everyone out there as we expand internationally?
Thanks, Rach. And look, I think I'll just rewind a little bit, and it sort of like links up to why 15 years ago I spent time moving out of retail and traditional business into building something global, and that was with a company called Jeunesse Global. But the reason I did that was because of technology. And at the time, it was social media, it was your first app, smartphones, it was Wi-Fi now in nearly every country in the world could get access to the internet. I thought I needed to be online. I needed to be able to build something internationally and remove all the borders. And that became tremendously successful. During that period, I spent 20 weeks a year in different countries, India a dozen times, Africa a dozen times, into China, all through Europe many, many times. And the way I looked at Shopley right from day one, I thought, okay, this is on another level because it's a platform that serves the entire world. Now, once the Shopify integration took place, that was really a bit of a game changer for me. And from that moment on, which is probably 12 months ago now, when we started moving and building tech that integrates with Shopify, I just thought we need to be able to access every single country and piggyback off the footprint that Shopify have already paved the way with, because any store in any of the 175 countries that that Shopify are in can now onboard and auto sync and set up their store in 5 minutes. So we need to be as internationally friendly as we possibly could. Now, one of the key decisions that we made in January, which we announced about a month ago, was a total overhaul of A, the licenses, B, the pricing. So we dropped the 15% to 10%. We halved the cost of our subscription, plus dropped the license down to $1 through this pioneering phase. But we really want to make it an absolute no-brainer for the 6 billion people around the world that are connected to the 175 markets, and having infrastructure in different time zones is really critical. You don't need necessarily a physical office in every single country around the world in modern day e-commerce, but having support, having boots on the ground, having people that are familiar with the localization of regions, and having worked with Jared for 15 years and traveled all over the world with him. He spent his entire career servicing Africa, Europe, and so on. So it's it really is exciting as we move into this new phase that we we are as internationally friendly as possible. Rachel mentioned that we're going to be announcing a pricing model for that market as well, and that's going to be a bit of a game changer. And I'm very excited. I've been sort of prospecting my entire database that I built over the last 15 years internationally, and I've got lots and lots and lots of people interested in what we're about to roll out now that we believe we've got a pricing model that purpose fits for all markets around the world. So Rach, that's my thoughts on that. I see Jared's name pop back up, and he doesn't look like he's got his video camera, but let's proceed anyway.
Yeah, we
Sorry, guys. Yeah,
can't seem to get Jared's video working, but I really want you guys to hear from him. So we'll proceed without his video. If it decides to come good, you'll be able to see what he looks like. He's
sure.
bald with a beard, just to give you some kind of understanding, which is why I made the joke about his messy hair. Fell a bit flat because we can't see him. But anyway, Lyndon, you have obviously been we've all worked really hard on this international model. You've been involved in international business for many, many, many years, and you've been really leading this strategy. So I'm going to throw to you, and I'd love you to be able to, draw some of that knowledge and wisdom from Jared, so we can introduce everyone to him.
Absolutely. Look, I really appreciate that, Rachel, and I think before I interview Jared, I think I just want to mention to all of the Shoply team members out there why we really place such a big importance on having a true international strategy. I think most of the people that are on the Zoom today have had experience in the broader network marketing industry over the past 20, 30, 40 years, some probably even longer than that. And if you have a look at the trends with companies that have been unbelievably successful, especially over a long period of time, the one thing which is a constant is the diversity of markets that they operate in. And so when you look at the companies that are 500 million, a billion, or even multiple billions, you find that they have a very, very strong footing in the country that they've been established in, usually the United States, but sometimes there are other countries. But they have a very realistic and successful business through the global community, Europe, Asia, and other places. And so we want to make sure with Shopley that we have a fantastic global strategy so that we can have a business that really have any knows no bounds. Now, if we look at the history of the network marketing industry, and just entrepreneurship in general, the engine room is really Asia. I don't think there has ever been a $1 billion company in our industry that hasn't been significant in Asia. So making sure that Shopley is very, very successful in Asia is key. And also keeping in mind, we quite often think that the biggest e-commerce participants or people that are involved are the countries that we're from. We know that in Australia, e-commerce is a massive part of how we function. We know in the United States, absolutely the same, but we do know in Asia, it is significantly higher than in our own backyard. So again, being relevant in those markets is absolutely key. So the reason we brought on Jared Thwaites is that not only myself, also Rachel, and also Craig have a great experience working with Jared. We know what he's capable of. We know what his skill set is. And we certainly know his experience. Rachel mentioned before that he's been has worked with multiple billion-dollar brands. And in fact, what Jared and I have in common is that we both grew up in this industry. We both grew up with a parent that was a key entrepreneur that really pioneered in the brave new world of network marketing decades ago. And both of our journeys started with a billion-dollar brand called Forever Living Products. That's where I started with my example with my mum, and also with Jared with the example of his dad. But I know that for Jared, one of the greatest skills that he has is creating relationships, and that's what the industry has been all part of. So Jared, I certainly want to welcome you to the team. We're very excited to have you on board. So why don't you, first up, just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've loved this industry for such a long time.
Thank you so much, Lyndon. Again, apologies everyone for the camera issue. I'm currently traveling across Africa at the moment, and mobile phone is probably the best one I have at the moment. Lynn, you guys can hear me all right?
Perfectly.
I think that'll be the title of my book in the Zoom calls. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted? That kind of thing. But yeah, thanks, Lyndon. Network marketing has been just everything to me. It completely changed my life, my family's life. So it's very close. It's obviously, as you said, grew up like that. But yeah, I started first as someone who was a distributor, someone who was all about selling and building and products and training and all those things. I learned it by having both parents involved in the industry. I kind of was the gopher, the person who had to do everything from setting up the display table to filling in the forms and applications. And so I've seen how this industry has changed from, we're talking back 1990s to where we are now, where you can't even imagine it to look the same way when you compare what Shopley is building to actually nothing like the industry in itself at all now. It's completely, the landscape is completely different.
And Jared, obviously your biggest driving factor that I've seen is that you've got a tremendous heart for people and what people can achieve through embracing entrepreneurship and the industry.
Sure.
Why have you had such a heart for people? What's been really the thing that's influenced you there?
As I said, I think it goes back to seeing how it radically changed our lives. My father was selling insurance and struggling. My mother was involved in travel, and there was no way we could radically, as I said, radically change our lives financially. Network marketing, or this industry, uh, gave us that ability. So I'm I'm someone who's passionate about seeing people enjoy more financial freedom, and that's really what it comes down to. Financial freedom, and that looks different to many people. It's not necessarily about being the next $1 million earner, which obviously would be great, but to being able in these economies that we live in and across multiple regions, uh, the ability to have an an additional income, or to build a substantial business where you wouldn't have the opportunity normally. That's everything. I think and it's just, as I said, it's life changing.
In your many years in the industry, you've been involved, doing many things. You've worked, as a general manager, not only for South Africa, but you've worked overseeing companies' growth into the whole African continent itself. You've worked as a president throughout Europe, managing that huge marketplace. You've had experience, through the Asian markets. How have you seen things change? Because obviously, you mentioned before about filling out forms and paperwork, and you come through to the
Yeah.
2020s. Things have drastically changed. What have been some of your observations?
I think the biggest one at the moment is how much the industry is struggling. I think that's what you have to say first and foremost. It needs to be overhauled completely. We've seen more and more companies, mergers and acquisitions. That's not out of that's purely out of necessity.
Yeah.
Almost every month or so, you hear about either one closing down or one joining up. And as I said, that's not growth span. That's just survival at the moment. And I think uh, that's why what you guys have achieved and what you're building makes such a significant difference, because it is more than just the typical bricks and mortar that companies have set up over the last, well, since the industry began.
I think, especially over the last 10 years, we've seen a bit of an evolution where network marketing has tried to modernize, moving into the world of social selling, knowing that the old model of providing a product range or a product, to really obtain people's focus, or having some sort of silver bullet to sort of maintain people's focus, is probably not realistically achievable today. In the modern world with technology and internet, people want choice, people want to try new things. We're obviously an e-commerce model. You've seen how Shoply operates. Why is that exciting for you, and why did that create interest? I know we've been speaking over many months. Why that created such interest to come and join us here at Shoply?
Sure. And I'm going to use a term like brainwashing, because it's not great, but it starts with this. People have got to the stage where they have seen and they realize that one company can't possess all of it. When you join companies of the past, or when you even today now, you've got to become almost indoctrinated in the belief that they have the uh, only product available, or the only service available, and then if it's not this, it's nothing. And so I think people, as you said, it's about choice, it's about having brands, to realize that there are multiple brands out there. You cannot be the universal or the only supplier of, you name it. As I said, when you look at the companies today, they are pigeonholed into one set of products, or one set of services, or one idea or opportunity, and you almost have to become completely blinkered to everything else in the world. I mean, there is nothing that drives more fear in friends and family hearing that someone they know has joined another company, because now you're suddenly going to be flogged with, you know, aloe vera or the next wonder product that is, as I said, that level of sort of complete blinkers on. When we know that today the world is smaller, e-commerce, as you say, online platform, we can see immediately that there are a range of other products out there. There are a range of other opportunities out there. And to be able to leverage that, I think is incredible.
Do you? I know that with your experience in Europe and Asia and the African continent, that an importation model, where primarily products are shipped from the United States, can be fraught with danger and issues and holdups and product shortages and shipping issues. How exciting is it to work with a local focus, to be able to look at promoting and supporting locally manufactured brands on the ground in the very countries that people live and focus with? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a complete game changer. It is, because if you're if you're looking to build a business, you want to be able to expand as fast as humanly possible. Now, today, in today's market, companies just don't have the appetite to go into new markets, because you need to have company registrations, product registrations, bank accounts. That process not only costs a fortune, it takes months and months to achieve. And then you have to go into a market and establish a brand, or convince the local community that this is the new wonder product, or the new thing. So that is what Shopley is able to do almost instantaneously. There are no cross-border problems. There are no duties and taxes to cover. We're just moving straight into markets, taking existing products that people already have built around or know of. So there is it's that fluid movement that is exceptional. It means that expansion can happen as fast as your imagination can run with.
I totally agree, and I think that you know, um, 2026 is all about choices. Information is power, and to be able to build a business and build a team, and think that qualifying to earn a team commission, could be generated from 10 different companies or 10 different product ranges, not just one thing, that you're
Exactly.
purchasing repetitively to qualify your account. You've got infinite choices. And I think that's exciting, because people change, and today people change more rapidly than ever before.
Absolutely. And as I said, the idea that one company can have the monopoly on, just they call it health or whatever else, I think people realize now that that's kind of ridiculous. So nobody shops one brand. You don't go out to the supermarket and try and stick to one entire brand to fill up your pantry. So to expect you to do that is kind of ridiculous now. And I think more and more people are just aware of that, and they want to branch out, and they want to be, as I said, involved in other brands, or trying other brands and seeing what's out there.
Well, Jared, look, we're very, very excited to have you on board. I know unanimously, seeing your skill set, your ability to connect with people, and your genuine passion and care to be in the trenches, and taking great personal joy in seeing people succeed. You're just the type of character, just the type of mindset that we want, here at Jeunesse. So, Jared, we really welcome you to the team, and it's exciting to have you on board.
Thank you so much. I will have my camera ready for next time. At the moment, it's just, what do they say, a face for radio.
Well, I think just before I hand back to our superstar CEO, Rachel McVinish, one thing that I just want to say is that, discussing, and Rachel kind of led into this before, but discussing about international expansion, one of the things that we have to be really cognizant of is that globally, one size doesn't fit all. This has been something that past business plans have almost installed unanimously, but it hasn't been effective. Other countries have different spendability, different average incomes, different monetary values, currency values, etc. And so one of the initiatives that we're wanting to make in building internationally is looking at having price differences with developing markets, developing countries. So we know what we have with our subscription costs, which have already been drastically reduced in Australia and the United States. We're going to look at having an even lower cost in some of those developing countries, like your Vietnams, like some of your African markets, etc. So, Rachel, I'll hand back to you, and maybe you can let people know just a little bit about how that pricing structure may work.
Absolutely, Lyndon, and I'll touch on that in a minute. I just wanted to, close off on our global discussion. I think a lot of the power in the social e-commerce space from an international point of view, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of this, but we talk about the Accenture report, over $1 trillion by 2025, and we're seeing that play out now. But a lot of reports have extrapolated on that, seeing that the social e-commerce will be worth 2 trillion, by mid 2026, and we are almost there. And some of the biggest regions for the social commerce growth is Greater China and Asia Pacific. Already, some of the stats around Greater China are 1.5 trillion. They are the dominant player from a social commerce background, and social e-commerce is growing 3 times faster than your traditional e-commerce. So from a global point of view, there is a huge opportunity in this space. Asia Pacific is next after Greater China. You then have United States and Europe. And for us over here in Australia, we are probably one of the least markets involved in social commerce. And we're a little bit behind, one would say, when it comes from a social commerce point of view. But Australia is one of the biggest growth markets at the end of 2025, because they are heavily trying to catch up with, the likes of Greater China, who are the players from a social e-commerce point of view. So there is real, opportunity in global expansion, and we just wanted to make sure that we are ready for that and we are prepared for that. But more importantly, we are providing that infrastructure and that support for each and every one of you to be a part of that. So, we will see Jared next time. We'll make sure we've got him on a call in the next week or so you can actually get to look at him. But one of the things Lyndon did mention is the pricing structure. So if you think back to the and we'll put all of this in the communication that we email out at the end here, but if you look at the community partner license that we touched on, which was the $199.99, we're going to cut that down to the $1 for the end of this year. And then the subscription cost, this is the one that most of you are all on at the moment, is dropping to $19.99, and that will be for the Australia, US, and those markets. But the international model will essentially be half of that, so it will be $9.99. And then for a merchant, that we are dropping from $99.99 to $39.99. The international price for a merchant will be $19.99. So what we've pretty much kind of worked on there is just for those developing markets or developing nations, they will be half of what it is, just to make sure that it is consistent across all of those markets. So we've seen from the very beginning our growth in some of those markets being reasonably slow, and that is purely just because of the huge difference in the price parity. And it was important that, like we've fixed it, that we fix it for those markets as well. So I really think this is going to see absolute, huge opportunity in some of those markets. We're already seeing, at the end of last year, you will have noticed we'd had, I was in Vietnam. We've had some huge growth across that region, some huge growth through the French Polynesia region as well. And, as with most of you, a lot of them were, just struggling with that price. They'd grown to that certain point, but taking it to that next level, it was quite difficult. So, some of the initial conversations that we have had, there has been incredible excitement around being able to expand and grow communities into those international markets. So I think, we are incredibly excited about where the global opportunity can go. We're incredibly excited about, having Jared as part of the team. And, I think the big thing here is when, we've really now have strengthened every part of the platform. And from here on, it is, as we really just want to focus on that execution. So as I said, we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's and making sure that everything is finalized and ready to go, because we probably could have done this a lot faster. Is faster the right way? I firmly believe no. The right way is the only way that this is going to work, and we have strengthened every part of our operational efficiencies across the board to ensure that we are 100% ready. And when we are 100% ready, that makes everything much easier for each and every one of you out there. So as we move forward, the focus will absolutely remain what we've touched on over the last couple of weeks is continue having those conversations, continue inviting people to those snapshots, and continue just having those discussions to open the doors, because the infrastructure is there and the momentum is going to start building through those discussions, through opening those doors, and through people. And that is where we are at right now. So, a big thank you to each and every one of you for spending some time with us this morning. It was a little bit longer. Sorry, but I think it was important that we just introduce you to Jared and just understand, the importance of making sure that you guys are supported in that international expansion. So if there's nothing from any of you guys, we will say goodbye and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, guys.